Well, for forgetting air up there, Air Bud, the air up there, or air up there,
Oh, sure,
the one
with Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon. Yeah,
Yeah, where he finds
that was a pretty
the,
good.
the nomadic tribe or whatever, and brings him back,
Yes.
fish out of water. Yeah,
Enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Oh, 90s basketball movies. What was the Celtic Pride? Where they
never saw that.
David Wayans
Daniel
was on
Stern
the Celtics,
just annoys
Daniel
me.
Stern,
Yeah.
and who's the other guy? Daniel Stern and somebody, I forget who.
It wasn't Pesci, obviously.
No, I don't think it was Pesci. All right, now we're gonna Google this real quick before the show.
I'll race you.
Dan Aykroyd?
Colin Quinn. Oh, it's a story by Colin Quinn and Judd Apatow.
Did I get it before? It was Dan Aykroyd.
It was Aykroyd.
Yep.
Yeah, I never saw that.
I did get it before we got there. Before we Googled.
Wow. All right, Stokastic, here we are. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with T McBee, Terry McBride, as we break down some no house advantage prop style bets, prop style contests. That's right, for sites and states that do not operate in your locality. You can get in some player prop action here on the old no house advantage. We have not one, but two formats, one peer-to-peer contest, the usual GPP style that you're used to seeing. And we also have versus the house. That's right. You can build out player prop cards of 2, 3, 4, or 5 questions. They pay out 20x here at No House Advantage if you get all 5 of your questions correct. That is versus the house. And then again, they have the peer-to-peer contest. Terry, what's going on? It's been a few days since we've chatted.
Yeah, it's been a couple of interesting days to start the basketball season. Had an okay turnout on the big slate, the Big 12 game, or what was that, Wednesday, I guess. And then the two short slates just kind of didn't work out for me. I tend to play, more oddball lineups. I cut out a lot of the most common, potentially duplicated, 1 in 600 type lineups. So on 2-game slates where it's just, chalky all day long, tends not to work out, and that was the case on those. But had a few in the top 1% on the Wednesday slate, so hoping to get back and duplicate that result today. Did not hit anything in the football game yesterday. I had that first touchdown from that unlikely 0.1% owned guy. Had him in like 15 lineups for a while. I was winning first and second place on FanDuel, but then midway through the first quarter, I want to say that all fell apart. So it's one of those kind of football days. My Yankees are down in an 0-2 hole, coming back to the Bronx. What else we got? I don't know. What's going on?
After Andy Dalton entertained me with the 2 pick sixes, wrapping up heading into halftime, I finished up day job work. I looked like, oh my God, it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to bed. I woke up this morning, didn't even think to look at the game. I won a little bit in DFS NFL. Nice. Didn't think to look. I realized I didn't hit my same game parlay. Holy cow, 4 touchdowns and 2 field goals after I was asleep. It was a barn burner.
Yeah, that's the thing. At least there was a lot of scoring, some action for a change. It wasn't one of these, 12-7 games that we've had, these garbage contests we've had in prime time. So at least we got our wish there. That was fun. And it was a fun slate. I had a bunch of chasers for a while, but didn't quite get over the top, didn't get where we need to be, but we move on. Friday NBA.
Absolutely. I see Ryan Houston says only one of those interceptions was his fault. Yeah, that was hard. That was just bad luck. I mean, you go in and you're up 10, whatever it was, 10-6 or 14-6, and then you end 2 minutes and 35 seconds later or whatever it was, you're down 28-14.
That's a bit of a tough break.
Oops. Yeah. That's a hard one to deal with, but there we are. All right, so we've got a couple dozen here watching us. Hit that like button. We'd also love to see you subscribe as we march towards 85,000 subscribers. You guys are the ones that help us put out all these free shows, even in the middle of the
Drop your favorite 90s basketball movie in the chat. Is it Celtic Pride? Is it Eddie with Whoopi Goldberg, where she's coaching the New York Knicks?
That actually was a good one. Rick Fox, underrated actor. Underrated.
Right. What about Forget Paris with Billy Crystal, where he's the referee? Kind of more of a romantic comedy than it is. He
threw out Kareem on his farewell game. Well, let me be the first to say farewell. That was a good movie as well.
It was.
Good times. All right. For No House Advantage, so they are bringing you a couple different ways to win. As we mentioned, we have you can test your skills against the house, get up to 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. You can do 2, 3, 4, or 5 player props. Player props, of course, are you're choosing the over or under on individual player matchups. They have multiple sports up and available. I want to remind you that those are dynamic numbers, dynamic stats, dynamic lines. They will move. There are contests that we'll talk about because that's where all the overlay is. Those contests, once they release the line, it's a similar concept. They'll put out multiple player props for you across the different statistical categories. You choose higher or lower, but those are frozen in place. They do not move. Think of those as the salaries, right? Once salaries are released in DFS, those don't change, right? Everybody needs to be on an equal footing, but you're playing against each other. How does that work? Well, tonight the contest has up to 10 questions. So you would rank each of the props that you select 10 down through 1. If you get the question correct or the prop correct, those are the points that count towards your score. Add all those up, see how you do against everybody else. And that is the format that they have over there. So it's like doing a 10-leg parlay, where you put your thumb on the scale, figure out which one you think is the best chance of hitting, put that in one of your upper scores. And then if you miss a few of them, that's okay. You still get points for everything that you get right. It's a nice happy medium. It's a different twist on things. Terry, let's talk about a few of the things that we have going on. There are 22 teams in action tonight. We're seeing this week, we have semi-imbalanced schedule. It went to 2-12, 2-11.
Yeah.
Smooths out a little bit over the weekend. Yeah, with the exception of Thursdays, which the NBA is just kind of seeding to Thursday night football. They're only going to do 2 or 3 games until the NFL is over. Tuesdays, they're going to be doing between 4 and 7 games. I looked ahead in the schedule. And then they've got a really fun one. Monday, what is it? Would it be November 7th, I guess? They're starting. Everybody's playing. They're starting at 7 o'clock and tipping off every 15 minutes. Because they're not going to be playing on Tuesday. Wow. This is a part of their get out the vote thing. So they're going to be doing staggered starts for that. So
that's cool. I'll actually be away in Disney for that. We're taking my niece to Disney World as a family in a couple of weeks, but I'll have to tune in for that slate. Hopefully we won't be doing anything important on Monday night. I can check that out. It sounds like a fun one.
But there will be news.
Sorry, family. Enjoy Space Mountain. I'm gonna be here building lineups.
Yes.
Cinderella all right. For me.
So let's jump in here. So we'll look at some of the contest questions that are available to us here on No House Advantage in the Pick'em contest. So I'm going to go just filter on a game so I can show you guys how you can sort through these things. If producer Mike wants to go on and do one of their contest games, you can kind of share the screen along with it. I'm coming in here. You can see across the top of our little pop-up window, you can filter by position. So, of course, it has all the positions. So that's a little more helpful in football when you're looking for the passing yards or receiving yards or receptions. Basketball, of course, players are going to have multiple props in the majority of the cases. You can also search on a player name, or you can filter the contest by the game. So in this case, I'm going to click on Chicago and Washington. This should be an interesting one. We already know that Zach LaVine is out for a second game in a row. He's dealing with knee soreness. So we saw who is it? DeMar DeRozan. I couldn't think of his name. DeMar DeRozan, the ancient one, shall we say, coming off a career year, picked up all the usage, all the shots, and all the rebounds and assists. The line here, Terry, 4.5 assists. Stokastic, we have him for around 6 to 6.5. I think if I'm remembering correctly, this is one I definitely want to go over on. Any per 36 information here. We have the Washington Wizards. That last I looked, they were favored by a point, I believe. This one is in Washington. They do play at a relatively neutral pace, at least they did last year. Defensive efficiency, not great, but much improved. They were middle of the pack, allowing 112 points per game last year, as opposed to being worst or second to worst the 3 preceding years. What changed? Well, Wes Unseld Jr. came in and was the coach, implemented a similar defense to what he did when he was an assistant coach in Denver, sort of changed up Washington a little bit. But come on, DeMar DeRozan getting all the usage. I think we're going to want to see one of his props. I like the assist prop personally. That's at 4.5, rebounds at 5.5, points at 23.5.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see a big upside game out of him again. Probably he's just going to see all the focus, all the attention, and the usage while they've got no Zach LaVine, primarily no Lonzo Ball as well out there. I was just pulling up good old Wowie over here to take a look. Looking at the last year without the two of those guys on the court, looking at a 36.9% usage rate. If we jump over to, I got to remember where all this stuff is. It's been a little while. The assist rate.
Because you're not writing all those articles, Terry. You didn't
That's
have to
it.
set up
I'm
your
not in here
dashboard
every
like
single
I did.
day, you know? Yeah, that's it. I can just kind of ride with projections and ride with the math and some sims and everything and not have to worry about some of these specifics. So I just got to remember where the clicks are. I still remember what to look for, but some of the clicks might be a little bit hiding. But it does look like his assist rate jumps. Last year, his full year over 76 games, all situations, his assist rate was 22.8%. Without those two players on the court, jumped to 28.1%. So I do like the upside for the assists. In a per 36 sense, he was 4.9 assists per 36 last year. And I think you said, what did you say the line was at?
4.5 for assists.
4.5. Right. So we're there in a average situation for him. We're basically there if he sees, around 36 minutes, taking into account that his assist rate jumps without those two on the court. I think we're pretty much home on that one. So that feels like a fairly high confidence, one with what we've got to work with.
All right. In general, I'm almost positive you can only take one. And usually I don't do this in football, but you can just take one player or a player once per card. Right. Usually that doesn't come into play, but sometimes you'll see these players that have in a great spot. I want to go over on this and over on this and over on this. You can only use them once. And then if you play somebody that doesn't play, you don't get points for that. So you can't.
And we see very commonly on those unders too, where guys are just misprojected against their minutes. The line is set at a 24-minute expectation and we're projecting the guy for like 10 minutes. Those are the ones that pop to the top of the unders on that board and they're sitting at like 100%, 99%. And usually you'll see every single one of the props for that guy because it's so miscast that they'll all be right there. So what you can do is shuffle those between different cards as you're building a bunch of different lineups. You use one on one card, use one on another card, just mix and match.
All right, let's look at another game here. So San Antonio and Indianapolis. So Indiana, the Pacers, not the Indianapolis Colts, but they still play in Indianapolis. So there we go. What is it? Gainbridge Fieldhouse, if I remember correctly. I think that's the bank that took over for whatever the Fieldhouse was before. But we've got some issues with Indiana. No longer do they have Domantas Sabonis. They traded him. They lost Miles Turner. He turned his ankle before. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that twice. He twisted his ankle somehow in a pregame shoot around. So he was a late scratch. He's going to miss a week. So no defense whatsoever in the middle. Unfortunately, we really don't have any way we can take advantage of that with San Antonio. They just have three players up here, one San Antonio and two from Indiana. But Kelton Johnson is our option here. We are looking at 8.5 rebounds. To me, that feels a little bit high. Stokastic's projecting him for about 7.1. The 8.5 number can be tough because he's still got Jakob Poeltl in the mix. We know there's a cast of thousands that are still there for Coach Popovich to choose from. The starters kind of got blown out in their last game, so they really didn't play after the first portion of the final quarter. So that's something that's a little bit nebulous. We know that San Antonio is playing for draft picks. Now, Pop's not going to outright tank per se. He will liberally rest people in season. That's not going to be the problem. But early on, would it shock you to see if a lot of these starters, the good players, got everything they needed done in three and a half quarters, and then they just secured the loss, shall we say, by emptying the bench? That's something I could see happening here,
sure.
At least early in the season. So Keldon Johnson is an interesting option in DFS, but that 8.5, I'd feel comfortable going under that one tonight.
Yeah, 8.5 just seems high. Averaged 6.1 last year in 31.9 minutes in a per 36 cents. It was a 6.9 rebounding average. So we're well over his per 36 number from last year. Looking at the site and at our player props tool, that against a 7.5 rebounding line, we've got the under coming through 58% of the time. There's a 58% win rate on the under on a full rebound lower. So I'd imagine that's going to push a 8.5 probably up to what, 65-70%, maybe a little higher even. That seems like a very, very strong spot to get to on a card like this.
All right. And then Buddy Hield is another one who's interesting. We know he's just going to be content. He will average double-digit three-point attempts per game. In the opener, he had 11, ended up going 4 of 11. We're looking at 2.5 is his number. I feel pretty comfortable about the over on that one. I'm just pulling up last year's stats to see what he averaged when he moved here to Indianapolis from Sacramento. Now, he and Tyrese Halliburton did get to play a ton of minutes. I don't expect he averaged 36 minutes per game. Halliburton was closer to 38. They each played just over a couple dozen, but he did average 3.1 made three-pointers, taking 8.5 per game. I think he's going to take even more now. He may not play that many minutes, but they're going to need his offense. I think that looking at that over 2.5 is probably something I'd put in that 5 or 6 confidence point range. So it's something I feel like I want to go over on, but not quite as excited about that one as I was for under on the Devin Vassell rebounds or the over on the DeMar DeRozan assists.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, buddy, I had a bunch of them in my life the other night for DFS. I think I'm going to have a bunch of them in my life for DFS again tonight. And that looks like a pretty good call as well on the potential for threes. Just looking at the overall, it does sound like he took a few fewer in the overall for last year, all 81 games, 10.3 attempted per game, 3.8 made. So that came down a little bit. It sounds like when he landed in Indiana by about 2 attempts per game, but with the idea that he's just going to be chucking a little bit more this season, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit of a better fit, plus missing Miles Turner. So they got to replicate some offense somewhere. So yeah, I could see him throwing up plenty of shots, easily enough volume just in him. If he makes a couple of them, we're home free. So we always try and look for that volume when we're looking for these 3-point props. And I think that's a good one.
And then the last one from this game is going to be Tyrese Halliburton. I do like the over 8.5 assists. That's a reasonably fair number. We're projecting him for 9.7. I think double digits is going to be in play most nights. I think he's going to end up in the top 5 or so this season. But as we know, assists are kind of down as teams tend to swing the ball more. A lot of it's not everything's going completely through the point guard like it did in prior years. I want to say last year, I think only 2 or 3 players average more than double-digit assists. So 8.5 is a pretty big number, but this matchup against a San Antonio team that is not going to be playing much defense at all this year. They've turned over their entire backcourt and some of their other key players. No DeJounte Murray anymore. So there's no lockdown defenders at all that they're going to be able to throw at Halliburton. So I'm okay with taking the over on that assist number.
It was 8.5?
8.5.
Yeah, it's like right on the nose.
For yours,
yeah, per 36 last year, 8.4 assists per game just in his 35 minutes a game. You know, this is basically the same number, was 8.2. We've got him projected to play 36.7 minutes in the first game. He played 36 minutes. Like, this guy is just a 36-minute machine. You're going to stamp out almost exactly what that line is. On the site, we've got it against an 8.5 prop, that same line, and we've got it dead on at 50%. So it might be a stay away. It might be a little bit too thin to make a card for me if we're looking specifically if we had a bunch of 80-90%ers. That's a little bit thin, but in theory, like, the idea that you're putting out there a pace up spot against a weak team, potentially a lot of run and gun, and they could just run the score up over 3 quarters, and then who cares? I could see him getting there. It's just by the numbers a little bit thin.
All right, let's look at some of the more exciting games. Not that these games aren't exciting, but these are exciting for DFS. Perhaps not if you are a fan. We've got Damian Lillard in action, and this is where we sometimes run into a little bit of a trouble. If we go across all 4 stats that he has, Terry, 23.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 3.5 3-pointers made. Those all seem, that's like a Damian Lillard kind of night. But I don't know that I want to pick any one of them. And it's so close to being on the line, I really don't want to risk the under on any of them, even though they are going against a reasonably good defensive team in the Phoenix Suns. Of course, any team that has DeAndre Ayton in the mix is going to be pretty good on defense. But that one makes me a little nervous. On the flip side, DeAndre Ayton, 12.5 rebounds. That's the one thing he does well. But he's going to be battling Nurkic in a cast of thousands here for some rebounds. Can you get us anything on any of these stars here? Let's look at a Devin Booker, perhaps above 23.5 points. These are all kind of feeling about right on the mark.
I could maybe get behind the Devin Booker just scoring prop. Per 36, he was scoring 28 points per game last season, played 41 minutes in the opener. We've got him projected for 35. You could easily see him exceeding that if he needs to. By that same token, I think you're right. Most of those Dame ones sounded like they were pretty much on point. He played 37 minutes in the opener, full fresh Dame, seems back to normal and raring to go. So I could see him getting right around all of those, but none of them really stood out as being, too low, too high that I would want to jump on one of the props. The 8-1 sounded somewhat interesting. He was over 30 minutes a game.
Rebounds.
Yeah, 12 and a half rebounds over. That's right on his 36 number. So we could expect around that if he plays 36 minutes. The issue is he averaged 29 and a half minutes last night. He played 30 in the opener. We've got him projected for 29 again tonight. I don't know that he sees those 36 minutes that he's going to need to get those. Could he stumble into a couple extra rebounds? Of course. That's why we make these bets. That's why these are, there's action on this stuff. But the numbers suggest that given what we're expecting from him for minutes, he's going to be well under that. He's going to miss that by 2 full rebounds. So that seems like a pretty juicy one, to be honest. The Booker scoring one is interesting, but I think that's the better spot out of the 3.
Yeah, the Booker feels like we potentially could get there. He is at 23 and a half. You mentioned that he was around 27 last year. He's at 25.9, almost 26 in our projection. So that one seems reasonable. The Ayton potentially going under could be the way to go. Again, it all comes down to minutes and how we think the rotation is going to play out. We're just projecting him for 10.2 rebounds. So again, that's a full 20% on the under. Could a couple rebounds bounce one way or the other? Absolutely. Of course they can. Did I get bitter because I lost a 6-leg parlay when Luka Doncic only had, what did he have, 6 assists instead of the 7 I needed?
Oh, just lazy performance by Luka.
Really, Luka? You had to do that to me? But we get close on it, right? That's why Vegas and the various other odds makers continue to put these lines out. They do quite well, and then we try to help you find your spots, right? If the bet isn't good or it's a stay away, we like to call it out. And some people say, "Oh, why are you talking about some of these bets that you don't want to make?" Because a lot of the casual people or the folks that aren't taking the time to look at this, get home from work, want to get a little action in on the game, they're going to gravitate to whatever game they're watching or one of these. They may grab a bad line. Yeah. But the question becomes, do you want a little sweat, a little $5 on it to root for something? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to do this consistently? Well, find those little edges. And that's what we're here to help you with Odd Shopper, of course.
And they make their money on people chasing the, thin lines for popular players, the fun picks, the stuff like that they throw out there. That's where they make their money. And they lose to sharps who sit here and, pick off bets like this, the boring bets, the bets that like nobody cares about, a guy who's going to play 12 minutes or whatever. But yeah, if he plays 12 minutes and their line is screwed up because of it, you can cash in. That's where you make money in these situations. That's where you can build a bankroll. And that's smart betting, as opposed to just, kind of setting money on fire against these silly lines on popular fun plays. So yeah, it's the right way to go.
All right. So we got another 5 minutes. So remind you guys, of course, we are brought to you by No House Advantage. That's why we're talking about them. They have, of course, the Against the House contest. You can pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 questions, create a parlay card. And if you hit all 5 on a 5 card, they do pay out 20x. They pay out 11x for 4, 6x for 3, and 3x for 2, I believe is what how it breaks down there. So lots of fun. If you miss one, that's why they have the higher payouts on some of the other sites. You don't get it if you miss one. Where we're also talking about these is the contest. Their contests generally overlay by about 40 to 40%, 50%. We've seen this a lot for their NFL Showdown contest. Their NFL main slate is really just the early slate. They also run an afternoon slate. These contests, it's part of their marketing to run some overlay there. So you'll want to check these out. Looking at the final game of the night, or I guess the other final game of the night, Denver at versus Golden State. You've got Nikola Jokic here. Now he's carrying the Q tag. He's going to play. I forget if it was banged his foot or did something. Expected to play. We don't know what's going to happen with Jamal Murray here. They're going to be monitoring his minutes throughout the first part of the season, and also giving him games off, considering he missed that whole chunk of time with his knee injuries last year. So he may or may not play tonight. The No House Advantage line has Jokic at 23.5 points for scoring. We have him at 27.5. He averaged over that 20. I mean, his back-to-back MVP campaigns, we know he's going to get the points. Not going to be Draymond slowing him down. Draymond may only play 25 or so minutes tonight. It's not going to be James Wiseman. It's going to be all Jokic all the time for Denver. If you're a little nervous, you can look to his points, rebounds, assists. That's 47.5. So you get someone who is in the mix for a triple-double at all times, perhaps he doesn't quite get the scoring or he's finding more open players, you might want to go the points, rebounds, and assists, the PRA. As we wrap up our show, Terry, how do you feel about Jokic? I mean, let's cherry pick the two-time MVP, the two-time reigning MVP.
Yeah, let's just chase unders against the one of the best players in the league, possibly the best big man of all time. Love both of those spots. Honestly, it sounds like they were targeting the points maybe a little bit low, maybe partially because of the Q tag, maybe partially. We don't have Jamal Murray projected in as of the last update that I ran, so maybe just thinking that he's going to do a little bit more facilitation work than scoring work today. Maybe that's why they knocked that points one down. But yeah, looking at his scoring average from last year, 27.1 points per game in the 33.5 that he played. In a per 36 cents, 29.1. If you want to talk about the PRA, that's comfortable as well. The PRA average last year, 48.8 in what he played. In per 36, 52.4. He played his dead average 33 minutes in the first game. He averaged 33.5 minutes last year. We've got him projected at 33 minutes. Nothing not to like. Seems like it's right about a full 2 of whatever it is in the PRA ahead of where he's what he averaged. So I think we're there.
Yeah, and that one, we've got time. We may get a little more clarity around what's going to happen before the 7 o'clock lock. Of course, this contest locks in full. There's no late swap or anything like that, but that may change your mind. So if we know Murray is out for sure, my thought would be to go to the points. If Murray's going to be limited in he's not going to play full minutes for a while, but if he's going to be playing, then I'd rather go with the points, rebounds, and assists and just take that chance that collectively, one of the best players of all time is going to be able to get there for us across a myriad of
yeah, sometimes it can be counterintuitive, like, hey, we're giving him a little bit more to do collectively, but overall it's like a lower, total effort. So you can maybe throw that at him. So it makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, remind, I didn't mention it, but right below us here, if you click through the link that takes you to No House Advantage, when you sign up, that link preloads it with a code that gives you a first deposit match up to $50. You put in $50, they'll give you $50. You put in $100, they're going to give you $50 because it's a $50 deposit match. You put in 10, they're going to give you 10. It's a one-time use, but you can get that by going in out through that link in the description below us. And then for those of you that are able to get a little action on MGM, we do still have the Bet MGM promo here. You can use the link below us as well. You'll be able to get free $200 when you make your first bet if you follow the instructions that are on the link. Those kind of change throughout the day, but they're doing their no-brainer bet. We'll cover those in more detail on the next shows coming up. We do, of course, in 45 minutes have the deeper dive with Adam and Josh. That will be followed up by NBA Live Before Log with Greg and Eric, and they're also going an extra 30 minutes breaking down anything that happens after lock, as well as talking about some wagering, etc. And of course, No House Advantage, because they are the sponsor of our show. You can follow Terry on Twitter at DigitalB21. I am at EMac DFS. It is Stokastic _COM. With that, gamers, good luck. Shout out producer Mike.
Hey, Mikey. Go Phils.